morning. Hello, you're with Jennifer Frost. I am the Crafty Carrot Co. representative, card making fanatic from Australia, and I welcome you all here this morning. This is our second tutorial in our annual free month featuring the Hand-Penned Petals. Now, this tutorial is going to be a little bit different because my role with the Crafty Carrot changed this year, and I get to show you some fun ideas for using things that are currently perhaps in your stash instead of the focus product. So welcome. Hi, I've got Stacey here. Hi Stacey. I was just loading up my iPad to see if I could see comments better because sometimes they don't always pop up. Here they are. Beautiful. Thank you so much for joining me this morning. We'll wait a little bit to see if everyone can find their way in. Sometimes that takes a bit of time. I've got Susan and there's a few others there. Hello, welcome. I'll start by showing you the sneak peek project that I created. So the brand new annual catalogue, we chose to feature the hand-penned suite for this month. This is on page 105, and I had a look through my stash and found an old favourite. So this one's got the lovely florals, it's got that two-step stamping with the colouring as an option. Lots of beautiful things in there, but if you've been a demonstrator for a long time, you may have something in your stash that has some beautiful florals, and you might be thinking that you would like to get more use out of that product. So that's what I'm doing here today. I went through my stash and I chose Touches of Texture. Does anyone remember this beautiful, beautiful set? I loved it so much I couldn't part with it, so I was grateful for the opportunity to pull it out and have a play. My first round of playing, my warm-up for our sneak peeks that went live on socials last month, was this project here. So that one was inspired by this layout here. So I just took it and flipped it because I have a preference for cards that go in that direction. I chose a very busy paper along a similar vein. This one's got that beautiful floral pattern. So I chose one from my stash that was similar. That was from Beautiful Promenade, if anyone had that from a few years back. And I changed my colours up to match. But what I loved was the way the artist had just used the outline of the flowers, so there was no colouring, it wasn't very fussy, so I was able to do the same using a colour of my choice. So that one's actually a purple, I think it's Gorgeous Grape, and I used some similar elements just to draw some of those colours from the back into my project. So that's a great example of how you can take inspiration from some brand new designs in the catalogue and apply ideas and things that you already have at home. Now, of course, Touches of Texture have this beautiful bunch of flowers here, but they're not the big blooms that you see in Hand-Penned Petals, which is why I used masking to put this together before I cut it out. So that's all just masked, but you could cut, fussy cut and layer to create your bunches if you wanted to. Rachel says your sneak peek is lovely. Thank you, Rachel. I've got Leonie here. Good morning. Looking forward to your presentation. It's always exciting when we have these free programs because so many of you get to experience what it's like for us in our group, and we welcome you into our little community. And I do hope that you are inspired to play along at home. We can't wait to see the projects that you create yourselves using some of the techniques or colour combinations or layouts that we have shared with you. So we've got a few people still popping in. Stacey says yes, she loves that set. I know it's a goodie. When I was an artisan, I used to get so many products and I would use them maybe once or twice, and it was the same when I ran classes. You would use them on occasion, but then you always felt that pressure to kind of clean out to make room for new things to share, but that was one that I just couldn't part with. let's see, I've got, oh, Connie, hi Connie. Oh, lots of people. Susan's here. We've got Jennifer from Florida. Another Sue, oh, popular name this morning. Leonie, look forward to your presentation. Oh, lovely ladies, thank you so much. Sue says, finally get to see you live. It's been so long. Oh, I think we had some mistakes. The fabulous Cindy Schuster has been setting up our events behind the scenes, and I think we just had a little bit of Facebook not understanding what 10 o'clock on a Thursday morning was here in Australia. So we've kind of missed you guys a little bit in our timing. So we finally perfected it and got it right. Sometimes those time zones can be a little bit tricky. Linda's here. Good morning. Oh, so many of you. Thank you for joining me. Oh, Tanya's here. She's from New South Wales. Hi. I hope that you're going well and you're staying safe. I know New South Wales is struggling a little bit at the moment. How are you finding everything? Narelle's here. Can you present for a couple of hours? I need crafting to distract me from work. Oh, you know me, Narelle. I tend to start and get a bit chatty. Sue's from Minnesota here tonight. Oh, so many of you. Well, thank you so much for joining me. If you're catching the replay, don't hesitate to leave comments. I do come back and I check on those later on. Sharon from Melbourne. Hi guys, welcome. If you've got questions as we go, suggestions, tips, comments, do pop them in here. We love hearing from you. I think the last couple of lives I have were very quiet, so it's so nice to have you here as part of the experience today. Oh, hi Liz. Tanya says we're lucky to be outside the lockdown zone. Oh, you are very lucky then. It's a bit of a challenge what's happening in New South Wales at the moment. So our hearts are with you. All right, guys, I have 18 of you here. Is anyone crafting along this morning, or are you just listening and working on something else? I had to put my thinking cap on for today. I had cased the Hand-Penned Petals for my project, but I was scanning. I don't know if anyone's excited about the new mini catalogue, but normally the mini catalogues don't get me. Well, they haven't in a few years. I haven't been overly excited to get the new catalogues in a few years, but this one was dropped off at my door and I just fell in love with every page. Had the most amazing designs and samples. So a huge kudos to those wonderful designers out there in the Stampin' Up sphere who give us these fantastic documents and inspiration. I know I was supposed to share with you something you could use with Hand-Penned Petals, and I'm confident that the florals in this, and the whole idea behind my demonstration is that I'm sharing with you ideas that you could use with whatever you have in your stash. So I fell in love with this card. Who has seen this? If you follow me, you'll know my style. I have that romantic kind of vibe to what I do. This is very much me, with its little touch of twine, the crumb cake, florals, and those gorgeous soft greens. So I just fell in love with that. So I thought I was going to case this one for you this morning. And it took a little turn. This is what I came up with. I don't have that background paper that they shared, and I played with lots of different backgrounds, and I'll turn the camera around and we'll get started, and you can let me know what you think as we go. Whoop days. My iPad was resting on the stand when I did that. All right, so I've got this gorgeous card here to share with you today. I love those reds and greens together. You could turn this, well, Christmas is usually what I think of with reds and greens, but it worked so well in this design. I loved the softness of this designer series paper, and I loved the texture that was running through it. And I did a few experiments to see what I could come up with. I initially just started with some white, some Whisper White craft ink that I smeared across a piece of sage to create this kind of softness and texture, but it wasn't quite enough for me. And when I put it together, it didn't feel right. I felt like the red needed something that little bit more vibrant to work with it. So that's when I turned to this beautiful color, which is Oh, help me out, guys. What is this gorgeous? Is it soft? It's not Soft Sky. I don't have the labels of what the colours are on my packets. But this gorgeous soft green, someone's going to help me out in just a second. Soft sea foam. Thank you so much, Stacey. Narelle, you've got it. Thank you. Of course it's sea foam. So I took this soft sea foam because I have my blender pens today because we're going to do a little colouring with blender pen. And Jen's got it. Linda, thank you so much, ladies. You're saving me. All right. So we've got this gorgeous soft sea foam, and I wanted to use that as a base to draw in those sage colours to give it that romantic soft feel, but while keeping a little bit of texture in there. So there's a few steps to putting that together. I've gone with an horizontal layout today. Normally I do prefer a vertical, but it all seemed to work well. I really liked the layout that they had. I think that's such a classic sketch that you could use for just about anything. So let's put some pieces together. I've got some, hopefully I've got enough sage. When you love a colour and you've only got the sample pack, it always seems a bit too special to use, so then you hold on to things forever. Is everyone loving the new in colours? Do you have a favourite? This sage is a favourite of mine, and I like the really deep green that's in the pack as well. Now, I'm just going, this is half an A4. I'm going to just fold that. I can see at some point I was a little bit rough with this and it's a little dog-eared, but you know what? I've got some tears and I've got some dog-earing and it's all just going to work. So I'm not going to stress too much. Just wondering if I might have a bone folder on hand to keep that nice and flat. But that'll do. So very simple card base. You can decorate the inside if you want to. And I just went with, let's have a look. So my soft sea foam piece I want to have. I'm just bringing that in about 5 millimeters. Susan says she loves the polished pink, which is odd. Normally I'm a soft pink woman, but the polished pink does make me happy. It is such a bright, happy color, isn't it? And I think it's a little bit more usable than perhaps some of our other very bright pinks. There's a very, very bright pink, the magenta from last year that I looked at and thought, whoa, I don't know, you'd have to have some talent to be able to drag that into your design. All right. So that's just about a 5 millimeter border all the way around. I'm just a tiny bit off. I'm not going to stress too much. I am going to stress. That's what I do. Let's just draw that in a tiny bit. Susan says she agrees she doesn't use the magenta. I think I've tried once or twice, as long as it's a tiny touch of magenta. But yeah, it is very vibrant. But that polished pink is lovely. All right, so to take this background up a notch, we're going to run it through the Big Shot. I'm going to have to lift this up a tad. I love this gorgeous scripted pattern, and I noticed in the new mini that they have a scripted pattern that also has a bit of texture, so that's a fun alternative to look into if you don't have this one on hand and it's not available to order. Oh, Kathleen said, I missed the beginning of the class. I couldn't find you. I've just gotten started, Kathleen, so you have not missed a thing. We're about to do the fun bit, so you're just in time. So I've got my soft seafoam background. I am going to use this beautiful soft sponge tool. Now, if you don't have one of these, you could use any of your regular sponges, even a dauber. You might end up with a different effect, but it's all very similar. So I am going to load up my brush, and I'm going to start where I know that my circular feature is going to go, and that way if I haven't quite got it right, it doesn't matter because it's going to be covered. So I don't want full coverage, I just want to have some of that gorgeous green popping in. What I love about this is we've got a variation in colour. We've got the darker greens mixed with the lighter greens. We've got that lovely texture through there. The ink is gripping on to those raised words. Alright, I don't want it too smooth, but you can see here it's quite dark. So if I can pull up and do some of my darker bits here and just drag that through so it's more, it looks more like it's been swiped through intentionally that way. Rather than just blotched in that spot. So I'm fairly happy with that. I've got some lovely movement and texture. I'll bring you nice and close. Whoop-a-days. That's the second time I dropped that poor iPad. So you can see the sponging effect has given the paper just this beautiful texture. Those words are popping. We've got the variation in colours and tones, and it's just, when you don't have a designer series paper on hand and you want to make something of your own, it's just a fun little idea for a background that's full of interest and matches your project completely because you made it yourself. So I did this the other day with this exact brush, and I just rinsed it out over the sink and it all came back to as white as you saw it at the beginning, which is fantastic. So do give your brushes a nice rinse. I'm going to hold mine aside. Oh, my friend Susan's here. Hi, Susan. We're just getting crafty. Inky. I've got ink all over my fingers. I might grab a tissue and just make sure. Kenzie's here. Hi, Kenzie. It's nice to see lots of our fellow Crafty Carrot community and some new names as well. So thank you for joining us. Now, how lovely is that? As I said, I had tried this way. And look, you could go through and mix in some darker in there if you want to, but I liked that we've got that different green through there. I think we love our Stampin' Up colours because we can very easily colour coordinate different things, but sometimes it's nice to add something a little bit different in the mix. I've got Jennifer here. Jen, hi Jen. Kathleen, hi, very pretty. All right, so now I'm using my fingernail in this spot here just to add a little bit of that textured detail. The paper is a little weaker, having been run through the embossing folder. If you don't have nice strong fingernails, you can use a distressing tool. I had one. I do have one somewhere, but I mostly am just using my fingernails because I can't find it right away. Now this bit I'm digging in a little bit. Bring you in nice and close. The corner I'm just going to manipulate. Michelle's here. She says loves the variation in colour. Yeah, I did too. All right. I'm under a little pressure now because my lovely friend Susan is the queen of dog ears and she'll be watching. And I have no technique. I just bend and fold until something happens that looks kind of pretty. All right, here we go. So now to adhere it down, I'm just going to use a little bit. What have I got on hand? Oh, someone has played with my glue and left it all red, but that's okay. Hopefully there's still some glue in there. I've got like 3 of these and I know there's 1 or 2 that are running towards empty, but I don't have the heart to get rid of them until they're absolutely not giving anything anymore. Susan was saying, I was just thinking she should know my corner technique by now. I should, shouldn't I? There we go. So we've got a gorgeous background full of texture inspired by those beautiful designer series papers that I shared from page 56 of the catalogue. So mine's very different. It's got darker rather than the lighter, and that's the beauty of casing. I did have another idea, which was this paper here, and if anyone's interested, I'll have to maybe do that another time. This one was actually used with glossy paper. I used glossy white and I sponged on my soft succulent. Then I swiped on some soft succulent so that's where you've got that variation in the tone. And I've used some of the beautiful texture in that stamp set that I'm featuring today. This one here. And I've stamped that over to get the dots. And then I've gone back over the top with my beautiful sanding tool after I ran it through the Big Shot in the same way I did this one, and that's drawn the white back up. But for me, again, it doesn't have that green through it, so I could have experimented a little bit and added that soft sea foam because it had that brighter green. Otherwise, it looked a bit too somber for what I wanted to do, which was create something that was a little bit on that brighter and more heartwarming side. So now to do a little bit of colouring. I have got this little stem from my stamp set that I did the other day, but I wanted to show you the technique that I used for creating the masking that made my sample. And I think this one, for those of you playing along with the Focus stamp set, that Hand-Penned Petals, I think this is probably truer to what you've got to work with in your imagery, this kind of size. So I'm going to get out some Whisper White. Susan says it looks so good. Thank you, Susan. It's so nice to have you all here with me this morning. All right. Now I'll just grab my dies. You could literally use any shape. I have this layered nesting die set. Let me have a look at the size. That's probably a bit big. I reckon it'll be that one. I think I originally used my Stampin' Up ones and it was just a touch bigger. Tell me, if this is the last project I created, how can the dies not be at the top of the pile? Where are you? Oh, yeah. Layering circles. And it'll be this one here. Now, we'll have to reset up. Will you perhaps pull out the steps to create the other background you just shared where the lettering came through? Right, for sure. If we've got some time at the end, I'll do a little bonus tutorial with that and we'll see what you guys think. And it can be I'll set it up as a challenge. No worries, Kathleen. I'm happy to share with you things that you're going to find useful. All right, let's have a look. Bring you down a little bit closer. I've got my white circle here and I'm going to pull out my trusty notebook. I'm very thrifty. I don't want to waste the work that I did in making all of these little masks. They're just done on A4 printer paper and cut out, and I used those when I created this card, and I just kept them taped with washi tape inside my notebook so that I could use them again if I needed to. So it was really handy for when I wanted to make this project to share with you. Let's get that beautiful big flower. I'm colouring with not blender pens, sorry. Yeah, they are blender pens. My Stampin' Blends today. So Memento is perfect match for that. Kayla's here. She says, looks gorgeous. We'll catch the replay. Well, enjoy work. Thanks for popping in. We'll start with this beautiful big flower here. Obviously, for those using Hand-Penned Petals, you're going to have a slightly easier time because your imagery is all together. But for those of you working with, the only trouble with using an old mask is you've got to line it back up again. And it's already got stamping on it to make it that tiny bit more complicated. There we go. We'll do that again. My mask shifted a little bit, but it's already stamped where I want, so it's good, all good. My washi is getting a little on the older side. I'll have to line it up where I don't have so many stamped lines now. There, I reckon that's there. Nope. Here. Now, don't move. And I'm going to do my stems. Stay on the block. Thank you. All right. Which way? Just there. I think that one's just about retired now. I can pop that one in the bin. When it gets too hard to see what you're doing, it's time for it to go. All right, it's going to come out different every time you stamp it this way, which is kind of the fun of it. And I'm going to do a little colouring. There are occasions where I feel a little bit restricted in my colouring based on what colours I have of blends available. First, I'm going to do a little grey outline, a little bit of shadowing, colouring process is a quiet one. So ladies, tell me, what are you up to today? Today is Thursday morning here. I took the kids to school. We had a snap lockdown this week as there was concerns about the new Delta variant of coronavirus in Victoria. And they actually unsnapped the lockdown for regional Victoria very quickly when they found the cases were all traceable and all in our capital city. And I wasn't quite expecting it, but I was happy because I love my children. But trying to balance work, which I do on a Tuesday and Wednesday, with homeschooling is all a little bit wearing. Susan says, so pretty. I love the stamp set and it's cool to see it in action again in the context of hand-penned. Thank you. And she says, I visited my niece this morning, took some pics of her. Oh, Susan has been making the most beautiful photos and taking family portraits, and it's so lovely to see her work. She's got such a beautiful eye for photography. And I would love to have her come down one day and take photos of my beautiful family when the world is a little less crazy and we can travel again. So I had soft sea foam in here, and I'm mixing in just a little bit of light granny apple green because I'm enjoying that pop of that more vibrant green, and it matches in with what I've done in the background, that blending of green tones. And I'm going back over the top of everything with my soft sea foam again, just to really blend that through. Sandy's here. Hi, Sandy. So nice to see you. All right, for my flowers, I have a mix of pinks. Susan says, I forgot all about shadowing with blends. Thank you for the reminder. Oh, no problem. I do love, it looks great either way, but there is something about the shadowing that really helps what you're doing in your design to really pop. All right, so I'm going to start with my Calypso Coral. And I've got, how do you guys like to blend? I seem to work through a few petals at a time
which makes the process take that little bit longer. But I feel concerned that if I leave it too long between, by the time if I made my way back around, that it would dry too much and we wouldn't get that blend. And a little bit of dark right in the center. And then again, I've got my light. And to make sure it all blends the way it's supposed to, I'm just going back over. So Narelle, you wanted this to take a while. I think you'll regret that in a minute. It's going to take me all day to colour these beautiful flowers. But that colouring process is such beautiful creative therapy when you're not in a class and feel like you need to hurry. Let's do 3 this time. Cycling back through again, deep colours right at the top there. I always find this to be such an amazing process because as it dries, like you can see here at the start, it's looking a little choppy. And then as it dries, the colours do start to mingle and smooth into each other. And it gives you that beautiful effect. Narelle says, I need the connection of my crafty friends. Take all day colouring. How are you, Narelle? You guys, you're in the Melbourne border, aren't you? There we go. Come back and go in here with that dark colour, because if the florals are underneath, they would be darker. Lynn says, wow, gorgeous colouring. Thank you, Lynn. Just mixing those 4 colours, working in small sections. And yeah, it's beautiful as it dries. I have a funny story from when I first started using blends. I'd created this card and I loved it. In the morning, I'd left it at my, no, it was night. It was in the evening. And I was trying to get this particular look and nothing I did was working. And I couldn't understand. I was using the same techniques to recreate this design and I just couldn't get it to look the same. So colouring flower after flower and then binning them and then doing it again and then binning them, and in the end I gave up and I went to bed and I just woke up in the morning and in my rubbish bin, what have I got here, the really dark one? In my rubbish bin were all of these blended designs that had dried overnight and were perfect. Like, oh, the magic of blends. So sometimes it helps to set it aside. It was a bit funny. Narelle says, yep, and it seems every doctor I have supposed to be working in an emergency department called in sick. Oh no. Oh, that makes things really challenging for you and for everyone who needs support. Sharon says, hello, Jen and everyone. Hi, Sharon. Kathleen says, can I ask what colours? Yes, of course. So this is light Calypso Coral. That's the one I'm starting with. Then I'm adding the dark Calypso Coral. Then a touch of light Cajun Craze. And then a pop of the dark Cajun Craze just at the closest point of the flower. And then I go back over the top with my light Calypso Coral. just to make sure it all blends through. So you can see as it's starting to dry, we're getting that blended look. It's not all of that choppiness that we started with like here. So hopefully that will all look lovely when it's dry. So bear with me, we've got another flower to do. Rachel says, my biggest issue with lockdown is knowing what day of the week it is. Oh my God, yes. I have missed appointments, telehealth appointments for my kids. I cannot seem to keep track of what day is what day. It's really embarrassing. And I thought maybe I was the only one. So it's nice to know I'm not the only one with lockdown brain. Oh, that looks quite deep. No, that's right. Yeah, we've been on again, off again. We had school holidays in the mix. I'm just, yeah. I've got no idea. And I'm not organised because they undid the snap lockdown on a Monday. I hadn't organised growth. Like when I've got the kids home, we just make lunch or eat snacks as we go. We just choose whatever's available in the house. But you have to be more organised when they're going to school. So the kids went off with pretzels and crackers, and I found a cheese scone in the back of the freezer for Jordan today. I'm just making do with what I've got there. And the rules keep changing and I get frustrated. My boss wanted us all in the office on Tuesday, but I felt like that was not really in the spirit of what our Premier is trying to achieve with working from home, where you can work from home. So they're a bit cheeky like that, putting that pressure on. And that makes me feel a bit stressed. And I had to wash my hair. I was frustrated. I had to wash my hair. And put a bra on again. I get quite happily stuck in a comfort zone. But I have been thinking about friends and family that I haven't reached out to in a little while I've been stuck in my bubble. So I'll have to start doing that again because I've missed everyone. All right. So there we go, 2 beautiful flowers. Who have we got? Oh, Kathleen says what colours I used. Yep, shared those. Oh, I'm cycling back through. Oh, Sandy has escaped to Anglesey. Oh, you lucky girl. The kids have been asking me when we get our holiday next. We haven't done anything in so long. I'm hoping I'm not missing any comments. Patty Bennett is here. Hi, Patty. No, not too late at all. The beauty of these lives is that you can jump in at any time. You can catch the replay later on. And hopefully you pick up some fun tips that you can share with your own crafty friends and community. Do remember, if you are sharing, we love to see your work. And if you don't tag us at thecraftycarrot.com, we will not see. And it would be really lovely to know that we inspired you. This is the ivory marker, and I often use it in place of what I would use a crumb cake. If you didn't have grey for your shading, you could go with ivory. In my little flower centers here, I figured that whatever was underneath would be naturally darker. And this was the closest I had to a deep yellow. I have pineapple, and I'm going to show you that. Now, this one is dark pineapple punch, but it's so vibrant. I was worried it was going to really clash with what was happening in here. Susan has put the tag in the comments for you so you can see it in writing, which is wonderful. It's very, very vibrant, and I was concerned that it was going to be too vibrant. So I added it and then dulled it down a little bit using the ivory to create that softer. I'm going to use my paint end this time. So So you can still see it's staying yellow, but that ivory over the top is just muting it a little bit. So it's not, everything about this project's on the subtle side, so that has muted that yellow in a really lovely way. So I can still use what I have on in my stash. Now I've got another comment here from the lovely Lynn. She says, we call that magic, trunk magic, but your project, I'm your trunk. The next morning, the project usually looks much better. Yeah, oh, isn't that funny when that happens? We've got beautiful color combination. Thank you, Stacey. And Kathleen said that's a great tip. Thank you. All right, so that's the coloring there. You can see as it dries, it's going to, actually it's not far off that, but yeah, you can always add more. That's why I start with my lighter tones when I color. I started with I'll do the colors again for you. The light Calypso Coral was my base, because you can always add more darker, but you can't take it away later. The light Cajun Craze was that little bit of detail on top. Then I added the, oh, why do they say, oh, sorry, I've got my markers around. I'll go again so I'm not confusing you. I had light Calypso Coral for my base. The next layer, this layer that came out closer to the edge of the petal, was a dark Calypso Coral. Then for good measure and some added depth, I added light Cajun Craze and just a touch of dark where it is right around that center. Now, almost finished, but that beautiful inspiration photo had these gorgeous speckles. For me, this is such a Krista thing to do, but I loved that texture and that distressing. My stamp set choice has a speckled image that I can stamp on top, but when I tried to do that, I don't know if it's still here on the table. Look, it was too much, way too much. So I'm going to show you a way to get it with your markers. Let's see. So I have a basic black Stampin' Write marker. I also have a dark basic black blends. Now, I don't think I've really used my blends, but I brought it out because this is going to be the juicier marker. This one is quite old now and not giving me as much of a result as it used to. But I do have to warn you, if you are using this technique, it may damage or feather your markers. So just be aware that if you are doing that, I don't use my black for anything else, so it doesn't really bother me. So you insert the tip of your marker into the lid and just do a flicking motion. And mine has gone a bit dry. So you might see it's starting to appear here, the flicked speckles. It might even be a good idea to start on your background so you can kind of see where it's falling. Beautiful. That was a lovely big one. And that's all I'm going to need for that. That was quite a lot. So start on your background, see the pattern, the splatter and the way it goes. The higher up you hold your marker, the finer the mist is going to be. The lower down, the more you're going to end up with those darker spots. Now, I've been doing that technique a long time. My marker's not too bad. But just, yeah, I just wanted you to know, don't come and blame me, don't be angry if it does something to your pen. I think it does work with the Stampin' Blends. If you've got Stampin' Blends at home, probably want to use the brush end. Yep, so you can see that spray all the way through there. So you could use any of your Stampin' Blend markers for that. So 2 ways to get that gorgeous splatter. Well, 3 if you've got a stamp set, but it was just way too much from the stamp. Alright, so we've got our base, we've got our fun background. This one I'm going to stick on flat because I've got a few layers to go on top that I want to add. We'll get that trusty glue back. Kathleen says, oh, that's a great tip. I think I read that out before. All right. So I'm just gluing that into place because I do love dimensions and dimensionals, but we've got a few other layers that we're adding that have quite a bit of texture. So the original design had this beautiful, beautiful lace ribbon. I think it's going to end up on my wish list because I do love a touch of lace, but I don't have lace. What I do have is this ribbon here. Does anyone know what this one was called? It came in a set because it doesn't have anything written on the side. I don't think it is that old. It's got a vanilla look to it and it's textured. And I remember being excited about it because you could colour it with your Stampin' Blends if you wanted to, but then I never really did. Quite like it with that natural look. So just getting my ribbon scissors, I'll cut it about there. Forever Fern, it came with the gold thread. Thank you, Susan. Forever Fern, this ribbon came in that pack with the gold thread. That's going to sit there. And I'm going to use some of our, where are you? Our trusty tear and tape. I've lined up where I want that roughly. I'm going to line that, pop that tear and tape here. I find it much, much easier to stick a ribbon down onto adhesive that is on the card than to try and apply adhesive to the ribbon, because that's a nightmare if anyone's ever tried to get the back off. Let's see. I don't want it to sit too far different because we've got the sentiment going over the top. I'm just going to do another little stretch in here. As I said, it's really hard to get off an embellishment, so going where it's stuck to the card front is going to be much easier. And then over the top we're going to put a sentiment. Now, Touches of Texture doesn't have any sentiments with it, so I scoured through my set to find something that had a sentiment that was nice and long, because I loved the way that layout came together and it was balanced by that long sentiment. I've got some scraps here of crumb cake, and the sentiment that I chose to use comes from Hydrangea Haven, and it's "The world is better because of you," which I think you could use for just about any kind of occasion. Who doesn't want to get a card in here that someone thinks they're pretty special? All right. And this one is stamped very simply on crumb cake. My tummy just rumbled then. I hope it wasn't loud enough for the camera to pick up. That would have been embarrassing. Alright, so I've just used a scrap piece here. It can be any width that you want. That's going to work. For me, I'm just going to need to cut it down a little bit to make it the right size. Let's go with about there. I think I probably left myself a little bit more room on my original. Oh, I'm going to do something dangerous and try and just take the top off. Andrea says she didn't hear a rumble. That's lucky. I don't know why I'm so hungry. Have I been talking for that long? Oh, it's nearly been an hour. There you go. All right. A bit of my trusty and favorite linen thread. I'm going to tie a bow. This stuff works so well for my style. And I love it. Just that touch of texture. Just want the loops to actually not be too bad a size. Because it's going to sit under here. So I've got my little loops poking out. I'm going to trim that here. And I'm using a little tear and tape to attach that as well. Again, I'm attaching it onto the card base as opposed to onto that ribbon because it's tricky otherwise. I always use my fingernails to kind of push in any leftover exposed adhesive so that it doesn't interfere too much with whatever other layers are going on top. It's not going to matter so much for this card because the adhesive is hidden under this crumb cake layer. But if it was exposed, you wouldn't want it sticking to the envelope or anything else that you had with it. Alright, so we're popping this one onto dimensionals. I think I used skinny dimensionals because we've got that ribbon layer underneath there. I'm going to concentrate my dimensionals. I think I've fallen off the screen. Sorry, guys. I'm going to concentrate my dimensionals to the top where it is going to sit mostly on the cardstock as opposed to overlapping that ribbon. And pull those backs. Pop this right about there. The world is better because of you. Now, of course, we could stop there, but when I was looking at it, I thought it was nice to add a little scattering of pearls. They seem to work really well with this particular layout. So are you a pearl person? Do you like adding a little bling to your projects? I went with a bigger one about here. Where's my... I think it's what these pearls are one of those things that you tend to save because you want it. They're too special to use on every project, right? But then they end up sitting in your cupboard and never getting used. This is quite an old pack and it's got the string of pearls through here, but they're just the right size I need, so I separate them. Narelle says she's loving all the details. Andrea says she always loves a little bling. Kathleen says it's turning out so lovely. Sharon loves a few pearls. Thank you so much, guys. I'm going to pop this one up about here. And I like my pearls and my bling in odd numbers. So I'm just adding a little scatter here, and then so they're kind of falling across like so. And that is my project for you today. I'll bring you up just a little bit, move some of this out of the way. Oh, I nearly pulled. Oh, I must have forgot in this one to add that little extra bit of tear and tape. So you can see that's a lot more secure. So having that extra bit of tear and tape works. So that's my original. We've got the one that we've just made today. So you can totally replicate this with whatever stamp sets you have and play with this at home. I would love to see what you come up with and what colours you are drawn to and what appeals to you. It's wonderful and inspiring. Now, I promised Kathleen I was going to show you how I put this little background together. So if you would like to stick around for a little bonus challenge, I haven't made anything with this yet, so it would be my challenge to turn this around into a project.
If you'd like to stay for this little bonus demonstration, an alternative background, do that. Let's see what I've got on hand. I wasn't quite prepared for this one, so beautiful card. So great to see this stamp used again so creatively. Oh, thank you. Sandy says she's missed. Oh, I've missed you ladies too. Sandy was one of my very first card making classes in real life. One of my first participants, and we spent decades crafting together. It was wonderful. And then I had my renovations, we had COVID, and I just never got back into it. All right, so for you guys playing at home, here's a little bonus. So I've got an old glossy white. Can anyone tell me, is anyone here a current demonstrator? Can you tell me if there is glossy white available currently? This is a really old pack. I've had it for such a long time. Patty says, awesome tips, great cards. Love your presentation style too. Oh, you guys are so beautiful. Thank you, Patty. That's made my day. Connie says, beautiful. Loved watching your colour. Oh, no. Okay, so Glossy Cardstock is not currently available, so this is a little bit of a tease, but I'm sure you can find it either in your stash or at a local or another craft supplier. The reason I used the glossy is because I felt like I got a better better blend in the base colour. But I would be interested to see, ladies, if anyone gives it a go with Whisper White, because there's absolutely no reason that it wouldn't work with Whisper White, because you would still, I think you'd get more of that texture, but it would still work. Now, I had on my desk a sanding block, and someone has pilfered it, but I've got this one. This one's not quite as strong. I'm going to go... Actually, give me 2 seconds. I'll see if I can find the other one that I used. My husband gave me a sanding block and it had a bit of a rougher texture to this, but for the life of me, I can't find it. I had to clean up the other day. I found this one. It might be, I think it feels a bit, actually that even feels coarser. So if you've got a sanding block handy, I'm just taking some of that glossiness, pulling that back a little. Down. It's a little hard to see. I used the last sheet of DSP that has a little gloss to it. Yeah, that's a great tip. That's a great idea, Sue. Alright, this one's already starting to get a bit of texture because, as you know, when you start to manipulate paper, you do end up... Alright. Now I'm going to, I have to try and remember how I created it. I'm going to go, see how lovely and smooth that comes in? So now you might start seeing the reason for the sanding block. So can you see it's added that kind of linen texture, those little marks. So it's very subtle. If you don't have a sanding block at home, that's okay. You can still do this. But I liked that subtle, the lines, the texture. What I like about using the blending brushes on this glossy paper, sorry, too hard to work and follow a train of thought at the same time. Can you see how lovely and smooth that result is?
it just blends right in. You can get a tissue to go over the top. Might pull you back up because you've come quite close. Alright, so have a little look at the texture that that's given. You can see that. Now what we want is some of this deeper look, and you're not going to get that with the blending brushes so much. Before I do that though, I might stamp on that little bit of texture. So if you've got a texture stamp set at home, you can give this a try. You could flick, like I just showed you, the flick technique. I had this from my Touches of Texture stamp set. Now I have to remember what I did next, because I've got this darker tone through here, and I think what I did as it dried, because that's the thing with glossy paper, it takes that little bit longer to dry. I might even use my heat tool just to make sure it is dry. Where are you? Nope. Alright, I think that's another thing I packed away, but this is for demonstrative purposes, so let's see how it's smudging a little bit. So if you wait for that to dry, you're not going to quite get that rub away. It's just blending that in a little bit. Now let's see, did I scrape this? So, you might have seen a similar technique where I scraped. Oh look, it's really gripped on there. That's all about just having a play. Playing with texture, playing with colour. I'm going to run this through the Big Shot now. It's going to end up, because it's still wet, so it needs a little time to dry in between stages, but I want to give you an idea of how to do it if you're playing along at home. Where's my Big Shot gone? When Stampin' Up changed all the plates over and the embossing folders over, I started to struggle with remembering what bits go with what, because I'm going to go, do you know what, I'm going to go this way this time. I'm going to make sure it sits in straight because it would bother me no end. Alright, so see how subtle that is? I've got some really deep ink here. And I might actually deepen it up in a few spots. Whoop. I don't want it to look uniform. I'm using my tissue to blend that through. And the beauty is, as I said before, with any kind of colouring, you can always add more, but it's so much harder to get the look that you're wanting if you're trying to take it away later. So I've left enough gloss on with my gentle sanding that it created a texture. And now, so you just keep building up until you're happy. I think I ended up, and look, this is going to turn out different every time you do it. And I did set my piece aside to dry after stamping, which is why my spotty texture is not as vibrant this time around, because the gloss paper will blend it through. But it gives you that idea if you set it aside to dry in between. So taking excess ink off where I can. And now this is the fun bit that you get that you can't get with the background technique that I showed you before. So if you've got your sanding block, because we're on white gloss, you're seeing how going gently over the textured spots is drawing that white back. So the white lettering is now coming through. So there we go. Obviously, if you're layering up what you're doing and you allow some drying time in between, you're going to get some of that deeper colour. This is what I've got here. In fact, I might use my blending brush while my blending brush is still dirty. And we can blend a bit more of that tone in. If you've got a heavier grit in your sandpaper, you can end up with a much more striped, textured result. Just be careful not to take all the gloss off until you're at those later stages. So you can keep playing because I have those raised sections. Just move the colour around. The raised sections are going to have the white come off them. And then you get, well, this one you can see I haven't played with as much, but do allow some drying time in between if you like to have more of that darkness. Have to find, so the stripes and streaks in there came from the texture from our sanding block, so do a little bit more manipulating, but that kind of gives you an idea of how I created that, and you get that white lettering that way. If you're using a whisper white, I'd be super curious to see how that comes up, because you'd get lots of lovely texture just from the brush on the white. There we go. All right. So there's a tiny little bonus for you. I hope that inspires you. I'll just get my camera back around. Stacey, she says she loves the technique. Kathleen says, thank you for sharing. You're very, very welcome, my crafty friends. Thank you so much for spending the morning with me. I hope that whatever you do with the rest of your day, you have fun with. I
we'll come back. I'll check comments later. I hope to see some of your gorgeous creations. Don't forget, if you are sharing online somewhere, to tag the Crafty Carrot. My beautiful friend Susan was fantastic and she put our actual tag in the comments here. Peggy says thank you. Sharon says love me some texture. Stacey says thank you for this technique. Love this technique. Thank you for sharing. Oh, it was so good to see you guys too. Thank you so much for being here with me this morning. Next on the lineup, and Susan will correct me if I'm wrong, is Cindy. She was unavailable this week, which is why I'm second when I'm normally third. But that's okay. You guys didn't mind spending some time with me today. Yeah, so Susan went last week. If you haven't caught her, you can catch her replay. You've got mine now, and Cindy's next week, and Krista will be the week after. So lots and lots of floral fun and inspiration for you all. Thank you so much for joining me. Next month is our Christmas collection. So we always hold September aside so that we can get ahead of our crafty Christmas creations. And there's nothing worse than when Christmas comes along and you don't have enough cards ready or anything on hand. So anyone wanting to get organized for the silly season this year and wanting to do that ahead of time, especially with so many of us being affected by COVID and not able to see the friends and family that we love as much over the past year, it's so beautiful to have something to send in the post for a little bit of happy mail. Now, I had a sneak peek, but mine hasn't gone live on our Instagram feeds, so I won't share that with you yet, but I will let you know that I am playing with a retired stamp set again, and I have pulled out Holly Jolly Christmas. But the other ladies have beautiful new stamp sets from the mini catalogue if you are looking at investing in something new for your holiday crafting this year. Trisha says, hi Jen and friends, hi. Patty says, chopping DSP while I watch. Oh, thank you. Well, it was lovely to keep you company. Thank you, and I will hopefully see you all next month. Bye.